Hello, this is Richard Bruce, and this is my report on alien abduction. This is an initial report about alien abduction for which I looked at a number of researchers' videos on YouTube and read several books, focusing on two books in particular, Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids and Dr. David Jacobs' The Threat. The major names in alien abduction research I looked at include Barbara Lamb, Dr. David Jacobs, Dr. Carla Turner, Bud Hopkins, John Mack, Jacques Vallée, Mary Wadwell, and Joseph Jordan. In addition to listening to reports and reading books from these researchers, I also listened to or read a number of individual abductee witnesses. I will say in advance that trust is a key element in this field, as well as logic and clarity. And of the researchers I looked at, I found the most trustworthy to be Dr. David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, and Dr. Carla Turner. I base this preferred trust on a sense of expectation of the skeptical view, essentially addressing that issue of trust as a standard in their presentations, because they know that with little or no empirical evidence and known deception taking place, they feel an appropriate sense of obligation to demonstrate trustworthiness with error-checking and cohesive arguments. Also, I must say, there is a certain indefinable humanity I see and hear in these researchers, which sets them apart from others I listened to or read. The most cursory look at the abduction phenomena defines it in the very word abduction, meaning people are taken against their will, with the trademark features of lost time and memory, offers a time-verified cause of suspicion of the abductors and their motivation. Any researcher or abductee, therefore, not addressing this suspicion of ill intent is also less believable, especially while touting the positive view, such as the aliens are here to help us. Jacques Vallée is an example of someone with a view that seems to lack common sense altogether. Or to be fair, I simply do not understand the complexities of his theory on the alien abduction phenomena. Listening to him, it appears his view is that the phenomena is real, but that it may be the creation of the collective human consciousness and therefore could manifest in various ways depending on the individual. In my opinion, the man is hopelessly confused. I listened to a debate between Bud Hopkins and John Mack, and what stood out for me is that Bud Hopkins at one point asked John why he does not seem to think there is anything negative about the abductions, to which he replied it felt it was more complex than just a negative situation, as many people report good experiences and healing. As John talked, however, I did not hear a reply to the question or sense of a clear logic in his speech. It was kind of fuzzy, you might say, not making sense or a clear point. A critic of this report will likely come in part that I am swayed in my opinion due to my religious persuasion, for which I would reply, I am indeed persuaded that the King James Bible is God's inerrant word, and further I make this report with the thought of how my Christian God would want me to make it. I would point out that those in the UFO community who use the term belief system in the context of religious illogic, I would point out that every person's view which cannot be absolutely verified is in fact a belief system. And everyone who ever made a report not only has an opinion, but used that opinion for decision-making on what went into it, regardless of claims of total objectivity. If you feel that only a science and provable fact-based view can make an accurate report, then I ask if you can prove the origins of the universe, and if not, then I say my opinion is as good as yours. In a situation where most of the key facts are unknown and entirely improvable, then the parameters of trust regarding a report fall upon the rationality of analysis in what information is available. In regard to rationality from a religious perspective, allow me to offer perhaps a less common Christian view, which is that evolution, in my opinion, is itself a reasonable concept, just not that it applies to this universe, but as an ultimate conclusion being more likely than a God or other intelligent life just somehow always existing, complete with language and science, never having some smaller beginning. Furthermore, natural selection and adaptation are easily seen, and therefore it is clear that living organisms change over time, regardless of the amount of time or how those changes occur. In summary, I believe God must have ultimately evolved from some form of jump from non-living material to something living at some point, but what we are experiencing now is a creation of a being that came into its current capabilities somehow, now calling himself God. Further, I would point out that in the case of every known alien type, i.e. reptilian, gray, insectoid, canine, feline, and others, they believe there is a creator of the universe. And that creator still exists, though of course they do not agree on the details. Are Earth atheists a minority in the universe? Therefore I say my Christian faith does not put me at a disadvantage of credibility as a researcher, while acknowledging the problem of closed-mindedness in any belief system, including one that is apparently an exception in the universe, atheism. So with that, let's take a look at two polar extreme views of the alien abduction phenomena, Barbara Lamb's Meet the Hybrids, and Dr. David Jacobs' The Threat. Meet the Hybrids. Miguel Mendoza and Barbara Lamb have not come to the evil ET conclusion. They, like a growing majority of researchers, see the ETs in a more positive light. Their conclusion has come from extensive evidence they have gathered from working with experiencers and hybrids. It has led them to the conclusion that the beings we are dealing with are extremely benevolent, altruistic, and here to serve and upgrade humanity to help usher the world into higher consciousness and ascension. Starting with the interview of these hybrids, we're going to look at Julia Kuita, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Juju, as she calls her name for short, describes that she is a human reptilian hybrid, the only representative here on Earth in human form, and she is of a race of reptilians called the Fajan, F-A-J-A-N. Her home planet being called Faqui, F-A-Q-U-I, in the Andromeda Galaxy. Juju realized her status through certain mind flashes or images and experiences, and that she was injected with reptilian DNA around the age of 5 or 6, so that she would be a hybrid of her species. She says she volunteered for the mission due to a cosmic cry for help that went out from the Earth, or Gaia as she is known, and her primary mission is to help the animals and other ETs already here raise the consciousness or vibration of Earth to make the transition to the 5th vibration or density. According to Juju, 5th dimension is a lighter, less dense reality where things are more malleable, such as choosing their own form. She says, "We choose our form as we are 5th dimension beings, and we've all agreed to be reptilian." She also says in an interview with Mark Gray that being in the 5th dimension automatically means being in a more loving, peaceful state. She describes her shapeshifting like this, quote, "Sometimes people will glimpse my crest or see my eyes change. So it's like it's always there, but superimposed on a different level of vibration. A couple of people have seen me shift full body," end quote. Here she describes interesting detail about coming to Earth and her connection to other ET races. Quote, "We're in what's called the Star Alliance with many species. We had to establish our intent before incarnating, and there's a lot of detail that goes into that, like which alliance you're going to connect with once you're here, who is going to protect you, look out for you, teach you, help you with your information, heal you. We have no part of the Ashtar command, no family bond with them. We had to work with the Palladians to make this body, so we all work together. But I'm closer to the insectoid species, the mantis and the greys. I'm really attracted to them, and they've helped me so much, and I know I have hybrid children with them. So there are some unanswered questions like, who is the Star Alliance, and why did they have to establish their intent with them before incarnating on Earth? What is their purpose with Earth, that they regulate who comes here and why? This is important because it involves security while on Earth, and various ET races are working together in whatever Ashtar command is. Notice I saw a report a Christian made that Ashtar is actually the name of a evil, false god, which is both a god and goddess. It's a dual sex type being, as you'll see. And here's a scripture relating to it, Joshua 9:10. And all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites that were beyond Jordan, to Sihon, king of Heshbon, and to Og, king of Bashan, which was at Ashtaroth, and that's spelled Ashtaroth in the Authorized King James Bible. And then also Joshua 12:4, and the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of the giants that dwelt at Ashtaroth and at Edrei. So Wikipedia has it listed as the name Ashtaroth was ultimately derived from that of the 2nd millennium BC Phoenician goddess Astarte, an equivalent of the Babylonian Ishtar, and the earlier Sumerian Inanna. She is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible in forms Ashtoreth, singular, and Ashtaroth, plural, in reference to multiple statues of her. This latter form was directly transliterated by the early Greek and Latin versions of the Bible, where it was less apparent that it has been a plural feminine in Hebrew. The Christian report was about how aliens are used as part of the Great Deception, and if you trace the names such as Ashtar Command to Ashtaroth, what you find is that these are really demons. This is in stark contrast to the benevolent purposes described by Juju of her race working with Ashtar Command, or rather not working with it, but she mentions it. Is this unrelated, or are they really in fact demons, which perhaps, while genuinely being extraterrestrial or interdimensional, the hybrids themselves are not aware of what they really are? Juju describes being taught how to fly a ship, and says some interesting things about Earth's attitude towards ETs. Quote, Truman had a shoot them down policy, and they know that, so they have shields up. There could be a lot up there that are cloaked, and I'm always asking them to show themselves, and sometimes they'll guide you to look at a star or give you a real quick blip, but it's a risk as our government has devastating weapons, end quote. Why would the President of the United States have a shoot-down policy of alien craft? Think about that. Why would he make an order to shoot them down? He wouldn't tell the public about it. This is Truman. But he has an order for our military to shoot them down. Did he know something about them that we don't, but they won't tell the public? I've known from the Aztec crash and related sources that the American government has the technology that can bring down alien ships, and this devastating weapons seems to confirm that. Juju said, quote, Mother Earth called us, told us she was ready to evolve, to move to a higher frequency, and she needs help to do that. I was in my ship when she put out her 911 call. It was very powerful and emotionally overwhelming. It was like a quantum beam of energy she shot out into the universe, end quote. So here she is describing why she chose to incarnate on Earth. This is described in more detail here. Quote, Our whole intention of living is based on good for all, not just one group. We consider the whole of Andromeda Galaxy to be part of our home. Everything we decide for the good of as many beings as we can. So they allowed me, which is such an honor, and I don't know why I was chosen, to bring my fifth dimensional frequency to Earth, to be part of the mission. My soul comes from a fifth dimension place, carries that energy, and being a hybrid allows me to carry more of that frequency. Being a hybrid doesn't make us more special. Whether you're a hybrid or not just depends on your mission. We understood that a lot of other ETs were coming here to help Mother Earth carry that higher vibration." End quote. So here we see what looks like a positive agenda, and we don't know. Maybe there really are ETs of a benevolent sort who are trying to help the Earth. Notice in the case of Juju, however, it is the planet and the animals first as a priority, and humans behind those two. Quote, "I came here not specifically for humanity, but for Mother Earth and the animals. Humankind was a third priority." End quote. Juju describes more about her shape-shifting here. "At nighttime, I shift into my hybrid state to send data back. You don't use a Commodore 64 for today's purposes, you use the right equipment. You need a 5D form to send the information back, so I shift into that form. My ex saw me shift one night, full body, and she said the only reason she didn't run screaming was because she could see my characteristics and realized it was me." End quote. So she saw Juju, but in her reptilian form, but she recognized her features in that reptilian form, which is why she didn't run off screaming. Notice from this quote, Juju relates more to ETs than to humans. Quote, "It's not my mission to teach humanity, but I offer who I am to the world, and I'm open to people if they want to know, but that's as far as I go. It's kind of sad as I'm the only one from my planet. It's a lonely existence, being separate from my home planet all my life. But there are many ETs here from all over, and I feel like they're my extended family. I tend to have more of an ET perspective than a human perspective. I always think of how the ET feels. I can see things more easily through the ET perspective." Okay, here's some more about the higher vibration aspect of their purpose here on Earth. Quote, "To intervene or manipulate is more of a lower vibration. The way I've been taught and see things is that we bring an essence in that is of a higher vibration. Use or expanded consciousness and apply loving, spiritual, grateful energies and affect the overall energy of the planet." End quote. Quote, "My understanding is that Mother Earth herself wishes to move forward and evolve, and so does the human soul group, which wants to shift collectively into the fifth dimensional existence." End quote. This matches what Alex Collier and others say about the human collective. Basically, that Earth is going through the process of ascension into the fifth density, or higher and better state, and some will be ready to evolve, but some not, with various consequences being staying here in the miserable suffering state of the third density to being carted off to another world that is still in the third density. So you have one of two choices. Either the people who don't ascend to the fifth dimension or fifth density will either stay here in a Earth that stays in its third density, and then there'll be another Earth, I guess, that splits off into the fifth dimension situation, or the whole Earth will ascend into the fifth dimension, and those that are not ready to ascend will be carted off to another planet that is still in third density. So they'll be taken off and put into another planet for a whole other cycle of experiencing the third density. So it boils down to spiritual, cosmic experience, which eventually leads you into ascension. So the whole thing is a process of ascension. I do not know, of course, but I wonder if this is not a complete bogus concept designed to deceive, such as what Donald Marshall describes some abductees to the cloning center are told so they do not attempt to find the underground facility. One thought I had is that there may actually be a dimensional shift made available to many souls, quote, evolved to this, but the true children of God will remain on earth or its current state with the Lord as described in the millennial reign of Christ. Juju says, quote, "The higher your vibrational frequency becomes, the closer you get to the highest universal truth. But our personal truths are different, and we must respect that. I see universal truth as the highest, most pure knowledge of source energy, the creator of all that is. Each evolutionary step a soul takes toward source energy, as an increase in one's vibration, opens us to this pure truth. We exist here in physical third dimension form, which grants us very little access to pure truth compared to those of higher dimensions, so each of us has our own." End quote. Here we see more on vibration, here ascension with truth itself, but then a hint at God, seemingly called here, quote, "source energy, the creator of all that is," end quote. Is it accurate to say that our current form, called here third dimensional form, grants us very little access to pure truth compared with higher dimensions? If, as is written, God's dwelling place will be among men in the earth, can we say this reality grants us very little access to pure truth? Revelation 21:3, "And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God." Psalm 45:16, "Instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth." Notice the Psalm 45:16 is speaking to the daughter of Jerusalem and telling her that her children she may make princes in the earth, which means at least the millennial reign of Christ. So that's talking about how God's people are going to be in the earth. Now, also another thing to consider is that nowhere in Scripture have I found anyway, and let me know if you know about something, that really describes a shift in the frequency or dimension of Earth, or anything about the fifth dimension, or anything that looks like it relates to the fifth dimension. Juju says, quote, "The reason so many ETs are here is to bring as much light and higher frequency to this planet as possible, because Earth wants to evolve, and with all this shadowy government stuff going on, with negativity, greed, power and control, creating hierarchies, that's very unevolved 3D thinking," end quote. Juju says, "It's like proof. The need for proof of something is low vibration. When you become more evolved, move to a higher spiritual vibration, you don't need proof. Your eyes open to how things really are. And you get proof, but that's when you don't need it. You just know. So going from 3D thinking to 5D thinking doesn't just happen with a snap. It's personal growth," end quote. Okay, so I kind of understand what she's saying, and it might even be true. But if you really look at that, what it's saying is the need for proof is low vibration. It's like if you want verification in a situation where we don't have open contact, we don't have any sure way to know the truth, and then saying the need for proof is low vibration, it just seems like even if an aspect of that is true, like her perspective was true about it, it would lack a sensitivity to the reader or people who are looking at this subject and saying, what? The need for proof is low vibration, when they themselves acknowledge that there are liars and all kinds of deceptions and things going on. So to say that the need for proof is low vibration, it's almost like, you can see it's like a cover-up. It almost sounds like a deformation of that which establishes the truth, as though it is unpopular or uncool for someone to ask for proof. I can imagine Juju would not be interested in shape-shifting for people wanting some proof, as she is a hybrid, but on the other hand, I don't think it's an unreasonable request for select researchers and people as a whole. Personally, I can believe she is a shape-shifting hybrid, and in this case, I believe her story and many others I have heard. But why, if she really wants to help the world, which includes humanity, a third but still priority she mentions, would she not want to help everybody realize we are not alone, which she herself even states you cannot say government and disclosure in the same sentence. Next, Juju says, quote, with all these star seeds and hybrids here, raising the vibration, it makes that transition a lot easier. It's like a huge ladder that fell down from the sky and says, come on, this is available, and if it doesn't scare you, we'll help you move up the ladder, end quote. Juju goes on to say, if someone is opposing, they won't move to the fifth dimension, and that's okay. It's not a judgment, it just means that their soul has not yet learned what it wants to learn. We view that in a loving way and we support that. We don't expect everybody to be in the fifth dimension. That's not loving. We want to help those who want to go, those who are ready. It's offering that ability to move on, and that's all it is. We have our hand extended to you. If you're ready to take it, if you're not, we also support you in that. End quote. Now this is interesting. Notice Juju says opposing, as though those not interested in taking the ET offer to join them in the ascension are enemies. Contrast that she could have said not interested or not believing, but she uses the word opposing. She follows that with saying they accept those not wanting to evolve to the fifth dimension, saying not accepting them would be unloving, and going on to say we support you in that if you don't want to ascend. Now, maybe I'm being overly suspicious, as I'm sure she and Starseeds would say I am. But again, it starts to sound subtly like you're with us or you're against us, followed with words like loving and we support you to make it sound like benevolence. What is coming, one might ask, as a decision, event, or offering wherein humans not taking the offering are, quote, opposing? Juju says in response to the alien takeover theory, which is one of the questions that they asked the 8 hybrids that are interviewed in this book, Meet the Hybrids, she says, quote, if David Jacobs is using the word threat, I think it's a matter of perception. The words you choose show where you are at with something. The hybridization program is definitely happening, but why do we have to see it as a threat rather than more of a profound happening that includes humanity helping another species? I agree, a positive attitude can change things for the better, and why be doom and gloom when you can look on the bright side? But in this case, doing even just basic homework on the abduction phenomena denies a rational ignoring of why someone would ask the negative question about it. I will go more into detail with Dr. David Jacobs' story, but both he and the late Dr. Carla Turner documented literally thousands of cases involving every extreme negative experience one could imagine. And besides them, there are many abduction witnesses who report many things from memory erasure, painful and scarring medical procedures, forced breeding including rape and miscarriage, torture and death, and full life ruination. Therefore, to say what Juju says here is either denial, deception, or very odd lack of information. Maybe she was programmed to avoid any information which sheds truthful light on the alien abduction phenomena as a whole, or for some reason did not think much about Carla Turner and what she said and wrote in her case study experiences. Juju here also says that she would not pay for Dr. David Jacobs' book, saying, quote, and a lot of us hybrids have been asked to be like donors, to have hybrid children with ETs, to extend the species' existence. To me, that's a very loving spiritual experience, not a threat. It just depends on how you want to see it, I guess. I respect everyone's view, but I certainly won't support his book by buying it. End quote. So that's Juju on Dr. David Jacobs. In contrast, a reasonable answer to the takeover question might be, I understand a lot of people have had negative experiences. Maybe these are regressive ETs or those with service to self mentality, but my ET contacts have never treated me that way, and no other hybrids I have talked to have that experience, so I don't know where all these people reporting negative things are coming from. Instead, there seems to be a complete denial anything negative is going on, similar to what Dr. Stephen Greer repeatedly and inexplicably says, that there is no evidence that ETs are anything but benevolent. The witnesses talking about negative things and their abductions vastly outnumber those who say their impression of the ETs is mostly or totally positive. If you don't believe this, just go on YouTube and type in alien abduction in the search field and have a look for yourself. Juju said, quote, "I'm glad you've had positive experiences with reptilians, Barbara. I've tried to explain that to people, but I've had to be really careful what I say because it can make me a target. Because too many people think all reptilian ETs are bad. The one you met, who was an ambassador to Earth, that would be really challenging. I would never want that job," end quote. So here she's describing a reptilian ambassador to Earth, okay? Well, have you seen him? Have you seen a reptilian ambassador? Have you heard a quote from a reptilian ambassador? Who is this reptilian ambassador to? The elite who aren't telling us there are not any aliens from outer space that they are already interacting with? Is that who the ambassador is to? But he's with them and keeping all the rest of us taxpayers from knowing what our own government is doing with these aliens? I would like to announce here that if any reptilian or ambassador of any kind would like to improve their image, they are welcome to contact me, and I will be happy to make a full report to the Christian world. But for this, you will have to put up with my low vibration request for proof on my video camera. Juju says again, quote, "But some takeover agenda may be in place, some evidence that may support that, but it's not going to happen for me as I'm not choosing that. For a lot of people, that may come true because they feel strongly about it. They will self-manifest it because of that thought process and that energy," end quote. Okay, so I've heard this rhetoric in various forms before, and I think there is some truth to the common sense idea that what you focus on will manifest. But I think this is, for the most part, a bogus and illogical point of view. Therefore, all the people who were abducted, or all the people that have and will be harmed by the abduction hybridization program because they chose it and it self-manifested. It just doesn't add up. Did Dr. Carla Turner self-manifest her abductions, and then the threat on her life that if she did not keep quiet about the abduction phenomena, then her death from fast-acting breast cancer in less than 1 year, stopping her work? I think it is safe to conclude that saying people self-manifest or choose what is happening to them in forced abductions, or they drew this to them by their own thought process or focus, is wrong and a diversion from the real culprits, the aliens. Juju says, quote, "You have to understand that you share energy with every living thing on this planet, people, plants, and animals. So if you understand that connection and what energy does, it really hurts when you're dealing with humans who act with rejection or prejudice or fear. That's damaging, and so I tend to pull my energy back and don't connect so it doesn't hurt," end quote. So I found this recurring message in the abductee or hybrid witnesses in the Barbara Lamb book. And I said I found this recurring theme in contactees, almost like a cookie cutter stamped out message each of them said, which is that if people are fearful or judgmental, they will never open up or talk to them, nor will other ETs make contact with them. It's a catch-22, because if people who even casually research alien abduction on YouTube have every good reason to be fearful and judgmental, they will be denied ever getting to know any positive aliens so that they can develop trust and a positive feeling about them. It's like, if you're not an insider or some kind of blissfully ignorant person who has no sense of danger or discerning in what is clearly a dangerous world, You're just not going to be part of the in-crowd, evolved, higher vibration people who get to hang out with aliens. Juju says, quote, I'm more comfortable at UFO conferences because the energy is very ET. You get all this awakened energy, and you can sense a lot of people are awakening or have yet to be activated, but you can feel it all there. At the same time, you do get people who want to be more open-minded, but are actually more prejudiced. Some come with the intention of seeing the weirdos, or some come looking for proof. There's that proof again. And the speaker better show me proof, and they demand extraordinary evidence. When I was at my booth selling books with Cynthia, some would come to me and demand proof. And I was shocked because my thinking is not there. My energy comes down. I vibrate lower to try to get where they're at, and I don't like that. End quote. So that's Juju again explaining about the problem of judgmentality, being judgmental, of wanting proof. And again, it's a two-sided sword, because on the one hand you want to have verification, but on the other hand you don't want to be blasted with, prove every time. Can you prove it? Can you prove it? Can you prove it? But I would find another way of saying that, because I think it's a reasonable request for proof, and I don't hear the acknowledgement of that need in these statements. So here again is vilification or degradation of those who might ask for proof, where I would ask is the loving understanding of people who have doubts or have never seen or experienced anything like she has. Is there any sense that our society is being lied to by our own government, and there is a clear effort, like the Men in Black, to silence or snuff out anyone getting too close to the truth about UFOs? Is there any sense that humans in general tend to confabulate, go crazy, or make big mistakes, especially around paranormal subjects? And especially if you are motivated by the need for money and selling books on questionable topics, is someone asking for proof or evidence of some kind really a low vibration scum of some kind? It really does start to seem like a fraud situation, like one of those live crime busting shows I saw on television, with the person clearly proven criminal in their actions seems bewildered they are being accused and proceed to give the accusers a convincing lecture on morality. It is a pathological denial of their own behavior and subconscious defense mechanisms to vilify anyone challenging them on those very fraudulent points. I'm not saying I disbelieve Juju's basic facts as she tells them, and she indeed is a reptilian hybrid, as she says, and from the planet, she says. But with this kind of denial rhetoric, saying the abduction phenomena is really only positive, and people saying otherwise are negative, lower vibration people that brought it on themselves, and anyone asking for tangible evidence of highly questionable material are fear-based people that will not join the evolved souls in the ascension to the fifth dimension, one has to wonder what else might be true about her alien family or existence. Don't you think it's a reasonable question in a world Juju herself says, and I quote her, that what is so prevalent on Earth, all these different feelings and intentions and deceit, unquote. If deceit is prevalent, why is it low vibration to ask for evidence in a highly questionable circumstance? If deceit is prevalent, why not video herself shape-shifting and upload it to YouTube to put any questions to rest? Juju is then asked to give her concept of God, for which I find the answer quite similar to New Age rhetoric, saying God is not a person but, quote, source energy, and we are all a piece of that energy, and certainly nothing like the Christian Bible describes. Juju says, quote, what about the Andromeda Galaxy where I'm from? The Native Americans believe we go back to the center of the galaxy, called Hanab-Ku, and that human soul group reincarnates from the Milky Way cycle as a human soul group on Earth. For us starseeds, do we go back to the center of our galaxy? It might be a whole different God. I certainly don't feel part of the human soul group, end quote. Well, it's hard to verify any such information, of course, but notice a few things about the wording. Notice the clear delineation, again, from humans, clearly identifying herself with non-humans as a separate group. Notice she says, quote, us starseeds, end quote, and, quote, I certainly don't feel part of the human soul group, end quote. I would say, indeed, these souls may not be subject to the once die and then the judgment, going to heaven or hell when they die, because what? It says man is given once to die, not beast. So if she is part beast, she may be categorized as what God calls beasts or beasts of the field. By the way, the quote, beasts of the field is found 29 times in the Old Testament, and I believe it is a reference to these humanoid beast types, intelligent, high-tech wielding, sentient beings, but with animal heads and features like bird heads, dog heads, alligator heads, and so forth. And this is what God is calling beasts. And they may or may not be, I have not found a connection, other than the fact that Satan was a beast, or Satan was an angel turned into a beast, that connects these beasts as all having been fallen angels. Maybe they were developed on these planets, and then the fallen angels became them later, but they're not the same thing. So there may be beasts that were previously angels, or beasts that were just evolved on their worlds, or whatever, or created on their worlds, and then, you know, over time became what they are now. The scriptural quote in regards to the die once and then the judgment is Hebrews 9:26. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world, talking about Jesus. But now once in the end of the world hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. I had a chance to ask Barbara Lamb herself, because that she regressed many people's past lives, if any of them described an experience of heaven or hell. She answered me clearly no, and explained what appears to be a situation of reincarnation to learn lessons, and a review process whereby the soul itself agrees what it has to learn next and what is best for their next reincarnation. You might be surprised to hear, I think something like that may actually be happening. Perhaps because, as Juju puts it, they are not part of the human soul group, and therefore the rule of judgment does not apply to them. Reincarnation is scriptural, as the 12 foundations of the New Jerusalem being named after the 12 apostles of the Lamb means they live again, even with their same names, which means that after judgment, following death, souls are born again, and this many times, for the same purposes of learning. Revelation 21:14, and the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Therefore, I would say Christians who will obtain wisdom and will not take the simple view might realize such testimony of souls learning from various past lives is something to consider about our reality and what all God is doing here. Next, I take a look at Barbara's interview with Charmaine de Rosario Sach, and Barbara asks her, "What is your take on the takeover thesis?" Charmaine answers, "I don't believe in dwelling on the negative side, as negative energy is created by doing so. Instead, we could create positivity with it. This side needs to come to the fore much more, and I feel it is part of my mission to help bring that message out." End quote. Here again is the minimization of the negative or control aspect of the abduction phenomena by first making out those who see it in a negative light like negative people, drawing this to themselves or manifesting it themselves, then brightening this up with a positive message about having a positive outlook about it. She says, quote, "dwelling on the negative side," end quote, making anyone taking the sum of reports as being negative as a person dwelling on negativity as opposed to pointing out the unpleasant truth. If there is really a positive aspect to the abduction phenomena, I feel this kind of rhetoric does not help intelligent people include it in their thinking. It's like saying a positive aspect to the rape phenomena is that another child is born, and those focusing on the fact that the woman was harmed against her will are dwelling on negativity. I think sensible people are not going to buy it. Speaking of rape, Charmaine says in her interview she was raped repeatedly and had children by it, but she does not see this in a negative light, but sees it has a purpose. Charmaine says, quote, "I was then taken to another room which was circular. Again, there were people in robes, and the black and red being was brought in, and I realized a ritual was about to take place. I was put on the floor, naked. Then the main man in the robes came over, and with a silver blade cut the palms of myself and the being and pressed them together. Then a chicken was brought in, which was decapitated, and the man poured its blood over the both of us. And then the being raped me." That's Charmaine Sach saying that. She continues on to say, quote, "The second time I was taken to that facility, it was to meet the 3 children, but we were not left alone together. We were monitored at all times. I have no recollection of the fathers, or whether it was through rape or implantation," end quote. She continues, "I could track him walking along the bed, and I knew it was going to be a rape situation. I was quite frightened, and I communicated telepathically that if this is going to be that kind of experience, I don't want to remember it, and I blacked out. I have had 6 rape experiences with different ETs. One of them was a very ritualistic situation. I'm not sure if it was on this earth or on a ship." Rosario continues, quote, "The visitations have changed somewhat. As a child, I never had anything negative, but when I got older, I started having negative experiences and abductions, which included rape experiences. These are discussed in Hybrid Children section. I'm fortunate in that I don't have the fear that many people do. I'm happy for them to visit and communicate. A lot of people are very frightened." You see, they all acknowledge that a lot of people are very frightened by this. They don't know what it is. She goes on to say, "But I've been very accepting." So her attitude is to be very accepting of it. "Even the rapes haven't upset me," she goes on to say. "I felt quite detached from it, and that there is a sense of purpose about it, like it's all meant to be. I might not have full understanding of why these things have to come into play, but I can imagine that this is the right time for them to be happening. Some people have been traumatized and can't get over it, can't talk to people about it," end quote. The above accounts of rape are startling, but what Charmaine says about it is quite interesting. She says, quote, "When I got older, I started having negative experiences and abductions, which include rape," end quote. But then goes on to say, quote, "A lot of people are very frightened, but I've been very accepting. Even the rapes haven't upset me," end quote. So on the one hand, it is a negative experience, and on the other hand, she is very accepting, even happy for them to visit and communicate. This seems like a contradiction. Further, there is a reason we have laws against rape, and those who are found guilty face serious prison time and lifelong consequences. I am mentioning this due to the misconception born of ignorance that women actually enjoy rape, which is not entirely illogical, and many women have even fantasized about it. But in reality, rape is almost exclusively extremely unpleasant for women, wrought with fear, pain, anger, and trauma, both physical and mental. It's hard to enjoy something when you are inundated with fear. To be fair, there is a lot about the alien situation we are not aware of. For instance, maybe their whole culture revolves around such behavior, and females in these alien societies are more accepting and in fact able to enjoy this situation. As you will see shortly, Charmaine is indeed a reptilian shapeshifter, and with this much of her alien, she may have an entirely different sensibility to raping than humans have. But the above conflict between negative rape experience and then a positive outlook on it might in fact speak of something else going on. As we can see from these testimonies, one thing is clear: they can control memory. For instance, Charmaine says, quote, As time went on, I found out more and more about people who had had similar experiences, particularly missing time. I had quite a number of them, and the longest period was 6 hours. I just remember a bright light, but I have no memory after that." End quote. What I learned in particular from Dr. Carla Turner and Dr. David Jacobs is that not only is memory blocked, such as with missing time, but false memories are implanted. Dr. David Jacobs describes in detail how many abductees who report a positive experience recall something entirely different when hypnotically regressed. He discovered that many people had painful and traumatic experiences, but their conscious memory had only positive experiences. Could it be that people like Charmaine, even though in fact they are half alien, are mind-controlled to the hilt even in their overall outlook concerning negative experiences? Also, how can we trust their overall opinion of their experience when, by their own admission, they don't remember most of it? A good question is, if what they have experienced was good or acceptable, why are they made to forget large portions, even most of their abduction experiences? Charmaine says, quote, "The 3 children that live on the military base are not reptilian. I know I have a hybrid child with a mantis. After a regression with Mary Rodwell, I had an information download where I was shown an experience in a stone room with 3 mantis beings. That was another rape scenario by one of the beings. From what I can recall, I've never seen that child. Again, I don't know if I'm having connections with them, being able to see the children but not remember it." End quote. Charmaine says, "Eventually we land and I'm carried out and down a slope. It's cold and smells damp. We go down a corridor in an underground facility and I can see bright lights overhead. They turn left into a small, dimly lit room, then take me out of the bag and put me on a bed. There is a small table by the bed and I can see stairs leading down. The man with the blue eyes stays in the room with me and the other man leaves. The men have stayed completely silent. A man that I have not seen before comes into the room with a box and Blue Eyes opens it. It holds a metallic cylindrical implement about 10 to 12 inches long, which has 2 needles coming out of one end and a wire coming out the other. I have a strong sense that it holds a liquid and they will inject me with it. Blue Eyes brings the device to the bed and inserts the 2 needles into my upper left arm. I can feel liquid pumping in. The sensation is very cold and it seems that the wire coming out the other end of the device is an electronic wire that trails out the door. I have the sense that it's connected to something, but I cannot see what. As well as a cold feeling, my body also feels heavy and I find it hard to breathe. The men begin to talk, and I hear a kind of electrical whirring noise. They are speaking about starting something, and I have the sense that the liquid that has been injected into my body is to facilitate an electrical impulse inside my body. An electrical current is now coming from the needles and running through my body, and the pulse intensity is increasing. The sensation becomes painful, and the cold is replaced by heat, which increases and continues to be felt throughout my body. The sensation is unlike any other I have felt. I can feel my muscles contracting without me having actively to do this. My bones feel as if they are stretching. I want to move but cannot, nor can I speak." Charmaine goes on to say, "My skin feels very tight, as if it's stretching. I can feel my muscles growing, my whole anatomy changing. My fingers feel as if they're getting longer. I feel my tail begin to emerge and grow, and my skin changes to scales. Throughout the shift, I am lying on my back, and I feel a certain familiarity about the change, although I am unfamiliar with the sense of it being forced, taking place quickly and painfully. I can feel my nails touching the bed sheet where they have grown longer. My long hair is gone, my eyes have changed, and I can feel the scales on my skin. I am now in full reptilian form. My mind begins to feel clearer. less groggy and drugged. My body becomes lighter and less affected by the drugs they have given me. I find that I am able to move somewhat, so I begin to think how I can get full control of my body. Blue Eyes takes the cylindrical device away. It's getting easier to move. He continues to watch me, and I have a sense that there are cameras in the room and others are also observing me. We do not speak. I manage to sit up in bed, and at this point he leaves and closes the door. I am alone, but the cameras still feel as if they are watching me, and I manage to move enough to sit on the side of the bed with my feet on the floor. I stand up and see myself in my other form. It feels familiar and comfortable, and I feel good. I notice a full-length mirror to the left of the stairs, and I look at my reflection. I have dark green scales, yellow eyes with black slits, a muscular body, a tail, and increased height and body mass. I feel happy to be in my reptilian form, but annoyed that the military has forced me to change shape and angry that they are observing me. They do not have a right to. I had not consented to them taking me by force and forcing me to change shape.